Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karen seemed to think that everyone on Earth is meant to serve them, and the stories are ridiculous. And in today's episode, OP tells a story about the time a Karen demands a sandwich get made, and it only gets worse from there. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lineup. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened a few weeks ago. I had stopped by a Wendy's to get some lunch, and there was a notice on the door stating that the Frosty machine was broken and that it was gonna be fixed soon. I just brushed it off, went in line to order. I ordered my meal and I went to sit down and wait for my order to be called. A few minutes goes by, and that's when this lady who's in her 30s comes inside. She's dragging along her son, who looks to be maybe 4 or 5 years old, and the kid was bawling. She was yelling and causing a scene, just screaming at the top of her lungs. And here's how the conversation went. The woman basically screaming and saying, "Where's my son's Frosty?" An employee tells her, "As I told you, ma'am, at the order window, the Frosty machine's broken. There's nothing we can do about it." Karen just yells and says, "Then fix it. My son wants a Frosty, and he's going to get one." The employee tells her, "Ma'am, I don't know how. As I've told you, the mechanic will be here tomorrow morning to fix it." She then yells at the employee and says, "You're so selfish. It's my son's birthday, you know." To which the employee tells her, "Ma'am, I'm so sorry about that, but there's nothing I can do." She then came over to me. I'm just sitting at a table looking at my phone, and she demands I fire the employee. I just respond with, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't work here. I'm waiting for my food." I was also surprised how calm the employee was, but Karen wasn't done yet. She proceeds to get behind the counter and she steals the sweet tea dispenser and she proceeds to scream, "That's what you get for not having Frosties." The woman then left and drove off, and the employee just stood there looking shocked. So yeah, that's my crazy I don't work here lady encounter. Well, that escalated very quickly, didn't it? Going from "give my son a Frosty" to outright stealing from the store Karen. Like, it's absolutely outrageous what some people will do. I just imagine her going back to the car and being like, "Well, Timmy, Mama couldn't get you a Frosty, but I got something the whole family can use. Here's a sweet tea dispenser." Like, what made her grab that sweet tea dispenser, I'll never know. Like, just go to another Wendy's, Karen. At least with that, you wouldn't be a frickin' criminal, right? But that would make way too much sense. So I went to the grocery store today for some essentials, and tragically, they were all healthy picks. Eggs, yogurt, spinach, blech. I managed to make it in and out of the store without any unfortunate run-ins with other people. And while I was walking to my car, I hear this older lady trying to get the attention of a cart wrangler in the parking lot. She was a little ways closer to the store than where I was parked in the same row. The woman was being ignored by a cart jockey with a cart full of groceries and an open trunk on her car. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what she wanted. So I walked over, and I made sure the goal was to get the stuff out of the cart into the SUV, and I did it. It took me about 2 minutes. The whole time, the lady was thanking me profusely, calling me a nice young man. I'm old enough now that it was flattering rather than condescending. I'm mid to late 30s, don't rub it in. When all was said and done, and I'd made sure the trunk could close without smushing anything, I grabbed my own groceries, and the lady then grabs my arm to stop me. Now, while I wasn't okay with being grabbed, she wagged something papery and green in front of me, and she said I was gonna give it to that boy over there after he helped me, but apparently he couldn't hear me. She said that with an eye roll. Now, rather than trying to argue, because again, this was a woman with whom I'd want to not F with, I took the green paper she was waving. It was a $100 bill. I was immediately like, "Nah, this is yours, take it back, too much." That sort of thing. The woman then gave me a look and said, "Young man, if you don't take that, I shall become difficult." Hearing her say that, the urge to cover my ears was so strong. Now, this wasn't because she was shouting shrilly, it was because the last time I heard a woman speak to me in that tone, my earlobe got pinched and I was dragged to the appropriate authority. Rather than argue, I just took the money. Right after she released me, I felt something heavy slam into my side. It knocked me off balance, but not quite tipping me over. Once I recovered my balance and looked at what hit me, which was a cart full of groceries, I saw a woman in her 40s wearing big sunglasses staring at me from the back of her own SUV. The woman screams at me and says, "Hey, you! Put that stuff in there right now, I'm in a hurry." She then proceeds to start talking on a cell phone and avoid eye contact, with every expectation of me doing her bidding. Mind you, I was in black mesh shorts and a navy blue t-shirt. Folks who work at the grocery store wear white button-downs and khaki pants or shorts. It also wouldn't have been okay even if I did work at the store. I'm pretty sure shoving a loaded cart at somebody is a way of assault or something. But the sheer audacity of this woman just left me stunned for a moment. My mouth opened and closed a few times as I was attempting to think of how I was going to handle this particular situation. Because I've obviously spent a lot of time in the gym, and, well, the Karen didn't. If it escalated, which it probably would have, it would have been a really bad look. But as it so happens, I didn't need to do a thing. The older lady that I'd helped previously walks over to the woman who's trying to avoid looking at me. She then says, "Oh, I didn't realize that you had both of your hips replaced too." The woman said that brightly, and the Karen, confused upon hearing that, lets her phone drop. And she goes, what? The older lady then goes on and says, "Well, that nice young man saw me being ignored by an employee, and he just asked to help." Such a nice thing to see in this day and age. And mind you, I've had both hips replaced. My doctor would be most upset with me if he found out I was exerting myself that way. "When did you get yours replaced?" "They did mine one at a time a few months back." The Karen just replies, "I haven't had my hips replaced. I'm just kind of in a hurry. Now, if you don't mind." She then actually tries to turn away from the old lady, but the old lady wasn't letting it go. She says, "Oh, so there's nothing wrong with you? You just couldn't be bothered to put away your own groceries in your own car? You're simply too good for that kind of thing?" She was on a roll now, and she kept going. She says, "And rather than ask that nice young man, you just gave your cart a push and hit him with it, and just said you're in a hurry?" At this point, the Karen starts stammering, and she says, But the old lady wasn't done talking yet. She says, "And yet here we are still. It's taken even longer than it would have if you'd just done it for yourself, as you're perfectly capable of doing." The Karen then starts to puff up, and she says, "Now you listen." And she instantly got deflated by an old-fashioned look. Children prone to misbehavior are quite familiar with it. It's the look that quite clearly says, "We're in public. You are in trouble. Cease or the consequences will be Old Testament." And seriously, seeing it work on a grown-ass adult was a thing to behold. He then says, "Young man, please bring that carriage over. I think this nice young lady is ready to put her own groceries in her car." I just pushed the carriage over and I left it near the two women. The old lady then looks at me and says, "Now you run along and don't spend all of that in one place." The woman said it with a smile. I gave her the Boy Scout salute, grabbed my bag, and beat feet for my own vehicle. The Karen was actually still putting her bags into her car, being supervised by the old lady. I might have cackled. Oh man, nothing like a Karen getting put in her place by a wonderful old woman, right? And guys, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what it is, but when an older lady gives you that look OP described, oh boy, you'd best just shut up and behave. Like my grade 3 teacher mastered that glare. And to this day, like 2 decades later, thinking about it still sends shivers down my spine. With that said, I'm glad that lady stepped in and stood up for OP before things got really out of hand. This happened a long time ago. Some important backstory about me is I used to work at a sandwich deli. It's also very important to know that we are not a Subway sandwich shop, which is relevant to the story. The place I worked at shared a building with a Golden Gate gas station just off the town's busiest highway. And here's something else, not to sound too dignified, but when I worked there, I held a record of being the most loyal and friendliest employee the deli ever hired, according to my manager. The regular customers liked me too, all thanks to my strange ability in deciphering foreign languages, and I also know a bit of sign language. That one skill came in very handy when a deaf lady with a service dog entered the store. It was about 6 a.m., an hour after the deli opened. It was just me and a coworker for the next 3 hours, and he was on break while I was helping the lady. Since my sign language wasn't very good, it took longer than usual, but it didn't bother either of us. That ends when another lady comes in. And not to sound rude, but the woman had crazy written all over her. Her hair looked like she got struck by lightning, and the woman wore a plain t-shirt that had sweat and food stains on it. And she only had one shoe on. Thinking back, she could have been on drugs or something at the time, which would explain why she was acting the way she did. The woman stood under the "Order Here" sign, and she starts tapping her foot as she angrily stared at me. Let's just call her Karen. So while I'm ringing up the price of Deaf Lady's sandwich and spelling out the sentence, "Do you want chips?" I heard a loud, exaggerated ahem from the Karen, followed by, "Do you not see me standing here?" I softly answered her and said, "I'll be with you in a second, it's just me here at the moment." She then says, "Well, you should stop flailing your hands around like an idiot and do your job. You're barely talking to this person." Now, another thing about me is I have a strange habit of being formal with strangers. So I say to Karen, "Madam, I'm using sign language to communicate. I'm genuinely sorry if I'm taking too long, but I'll help you with whatever you need when I'm finished with this order." And Karen did not like that at all. She says to me, "I'm in a serious hurry, and you people are so dang lazy. I don't know why Subway hires people like this. You're basically still a kid." Hearing her say that, I thought to myself, well, that was strange. Why would she call our place a Subway? And why did she think I was a kid? I'm a 5'7" woman, and I was 20 at the time, but I looked a lot older to most people. This lady was nearly a foot shorter, and she was skeleton skinny. As I was putting on my gloves, I naturally asked her what kind of sandwich she wanted. And of course, she wants something we didn't have, which was Black Forest ham. I tell her, "I'm very sorry, madam, we don't have Black Forest. All we have is smoked ham, deli ham, and..." Now before I could even finish, the lady screams and says, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm at Subway all the time and I get the same sandwich. Subway always has Black Forest ham, so go to the back and check your stock." Hearing that, I paused at this, like the lady actually believed that this tiny place was Subway. I tell her, "Madam, this is so-and-so sandwich shop, not Subway. Black Forest ham is not included in our menu." I tried to explain this further, but I got interrupted rudely. Karen says, "Don't you lie to me. Where's your manager? Bring them out here right now." I tell her my manager's not working today. I answered truthfully, but she wasn't having it. She then pointed a bony finger at the gas station's manager, and she continued yelling and said, "He's standing right there, so go get his ass." I respond, "I don't work for the gas station, madam. We just share the building." Karen then looks at me as if I was the crazy one. Meanwhile, the deaf lady was sitting at a nearby table, just watching the show, smiling as she ate her breakfast. Karen then says, "Your customer service is the worst I've ever experienced. I'm gonna file a report and have you fired." At this point, all 3 gas station employees, including their manager, stopped what they were doing and just stared at the lady until she stormed towards the exit. Just before she left, I calmly attempted to correct her mistake one more time. I tell her, "Madam, I do not work for the gas station, nor do I work for Subway. This is a different deli. Read the sign." She then glared daggers at me, and she says, "Your lying is gonna get you blacklisted for sure. Subway won't ever want you back." She then left without even talking to the station's manager. As soon as she was outside, deaf lady comes back up to the counter one more time, and she signed out, "What just happened?" I told her, "Crazy wanted Black Forest. We don't sell it." Deaf lady then went into a fit of breathy laughter before she left too. After all that, my coworker finally came back from his break. I told him that I was gonna take my own break in the back of the kitchen. He then agreed, and he took over making subs. Although I couldn't be seen behind the refrigerators, I was still in earshot of everything that happened up front. I hear the Karen shuffling back inside. And this is the following conversation she had with my coworker, which was both astonishing and agitating. The Karen comes in and says, "Oh good, now that the mean lady's gone, I would like my Black Forest sandwich now, and make it quickly." Of course, my coworker tells her, "Miss, we don't sell Black Forest ham." Now, I was expecting another outburst from Karen, but I instead heard confusion, and she says, "Wait, what town am I in? Tell me." My coworker tells her, apparently the wrong one, ma'am. And with that, she finally left without another word. A few days later, I kid you not, I read the local newspaper. It was talking about a lady who got arrested by highway patrol about a speeding ticket who tried to flee the scene. It was her picture. Yeah, like Opie mentioned, that woman might have been under the influence of something for sure when she came in. I mean, 6 a.m., coming into the store with a missing shoe, thinking it's a Subway sandwich shop when it's not, and then the whole, wait, what town am I in? Oh boy, the customers that some people encounter, hey? With that said though, I'm glad that deaf lady got a good laugh out of that. Probably made her day. Now, I'm not sure if this belongs here, but I do have a story that I felt would be fun to share. About 5 years ago, I worked at the International Center of a university in the US. To give some background, I'm an Asian female, about 5'1" in height, and even though I was in my early 30s at the time, I still did look quite young, and I was often mistaken for being in my early 20s, or even late teens. My main job responsibility at the time was recruitment, training, and management of about a dozen international student interns who worked the front desk. Anyways, we had been swamped that AM, so I hadn't had time to go out to eat lunch. I got a sandwich at our campus vending machine and then sat down in the break room. The break room was always cold due to the AC blasting through the room, so I put on a comfy university jacket that I kept at my desk just to wear during the break. I also kept the break room door open to keep an ear out for the front and let my interns know that they could still pop in to ask any questions they want. A few minutes later, I hear a man's voice yelling something along the lines of, "No, no, no, you do not understand, you're stupid, stupid." The childish outcries, exclaimed in a grown male voice, made me immediately stand up and rush to the front desk area, without remembering to take my jacket off. The man was literally wagging his finger at my intern's face and yelling, while almost comically stomping his feet. I interjected his tantrum, and I introduced myself as the intern's supervisor. I then gave my name and position, and I told him I could assist him with the issue. The man immediately looked me up and down, and he scoffed and said, "No, you're a damn university student. What are you gonna do for me?" He then turned right back to the intern and he asked her to call the supervisor, as he needs to speak to someone who actually works here, not some young girl like the intern who sits at the front desk repeating nonsense. Now, this wasn't my first rodeo with unnecessarily angry students, so I calmly gestured at my intern to step away, and I plant myself directly in front of him. That made him change his rant towards me, saying, "Listen, I know you Chinese want to help each other, but my issue is urgent, so I need to see your supervisor." Supervisor. You need to call. Use phone to get him. He can sign my I-20. Yes, both me and the intern were Asian, but no, none of us were Chinese, and I do hate when people over-enunciate when speaking to me. My thoughts immediately go to, English is my first language, moron. It's evident by the fact that I just spoke it to you. I did my best to remain calm, however, and confirm the issue. I say to the guy, "Oh, so you're here to get an I-20 travel signature. If you go online and submit the form, you will..." He then interrupts me and says, "No, damn it, you don't understand." He then proceeds on a rapid rant, saying that I must get a real staff member who actually works here, instead of giving him the same instructions again because he needs this signed right now. The guy wanted to go out of town tonight, and surely the school didn't want to make him, a student who pays such high tuition, to have to come back on campus just to get a signature before he leaves the country after his road trip. The guy then says to me, "Do you know how much money I give the school? Do little girls from China even understand how expensive my luxury trip was to book? Get the man who can actually help me in here," he demanded. And here's some more background info. University students in the US on an I-20 visa need an updated signature on their form every once in a while in order to travel abroad and to get back. Now, I hated it when entitled students asked for expedited services just for convenience. Many students actually planned ahead and made their requests on time, and it wasn't fair to expedite the process for whoever asked the loudest. Another thing, I was actually the one who had the power to approve the very limited last-minute travel signature requests. and this would be due to real emergency situations, such as family, etc. But obviously this guy and his luxury vacation wasn't going to qualify for expedited services, just for being a D-bag. I then raised my hand and put my palm in front of his face for a second to stop his stupid rant. I say to him, "Again, sir, I'm the supervisor in this area, and let me continue. I hear your issue. My intern here has given you the instructions for I-20 signatures already, but you want expedited services simply because you don't want to come back to the office another day to pick it up? Unfortunately, that can't be arranged, so please go home and submit the online form like all of our F1 students and wait 2 to 3 business days for a response." The guy then starts to speak again, but I put my hand out again to stop him. I maintained eye contact and then picked up the phone. I then say, "Also, sir, if you do not leave immediately, I will be calling campus security to escort you out of this building for harassing me and my staff members. But before you go, just so you know, I'll be noting in your form that you'll be missing X amount of days from school. Note that you must maintain full-time student status for your visa. And as you've kindly told us of your planned weeks of absence, please be ready to submit documentation of why this was an excused absence from your classes. Lastly, do not insult my staff again or you will be banned from entering this office again." The guy just stood there for a few seconds and then he starts to say something again, but I proceed to dial the number on the phone. So the guy just ran out. Now, this might not have been the best solution ever to a yucky situation, but this was the first time that I kicked a student out of the office, so I was a bit shaken up about it. And the best part of the story is what happened next. My boss at the time, who was a white female in her 40s, walked in a few minutes after, and she asked me to come talk to her. I thought I was in trouble for some reason, but she actually asked me instead if everything was okay because she met a rude international student outside. Apparently, the rude man ran into my boss outside, and he asked her if she happens to know who's the boss of that useless girl in there, and if she knew how he could talk to them. My boss then told him that she was the supervisor of the woman who works in there, and asked if she could help. The man then apparently said how she needs to help him find the man highest up in the chain, because his issue demanded real work. The guy was so rude that my boss actually did call campus police to escort him off the campus property. She told me that next time, the moment he raises his voice, I do not even need to engage him in conversation, but I can kick him out immediately. Honestly, kudos to OP for acting so calm and professional in that situation. Like, it's one thing to keep calm when a random person is screaming in your face, but it's another thing to have them be condescending and make sexist and racist remarks. Like, the entitlement of that guy is next level. Like, just because you pay the school big money, it doesn't mean you can treat others like that and think you deserve special treatment. I'm glad he didn't get what he wanted. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/ IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/entitledpeople episode, where a psycho Karen boss robs her own store. It's such a wild story. So go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.